I always imagined that the moment my baby first kicked inside me would be the most unforgettable memory of my life. I never expected it would also be the night I walked away from the home I had once cherished. Just hours before, my husband returned, laughing, drunk, and reeking of another woman. At 1:47 a.m., Jason Miller pushed open the door of our Brooklyn brownstone. The hallway lights flickered on with the motion sensor, revealing something he wasn't prepared for. Silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that screams. No stroller by the shoe rack. No hospital bag near the couch. No soft night lamp glowing in the nursery. Just an empty house. And a man in a navy suit waiting outside the front gate, holding a leather folder. Jason's keys dropped to the floor with a clatter. "Olivia," he called, his voice echoing through every room. No answer. He rushed to the nursery first. A room I had painted sage green, dotted with tiny teddy bears. The crib was gone. The rocking chair gone. The white noise machine, which ran every night, gone. Not a single sock, bottle, or blanket left behind. Only one thing remained, a pair of pale yellow newborn socks folded into a heart shape. His fingers shook as he picked them up. For the first time that night, he realized something was gravely wrong. Footsteps approached outside the window, followed by a firm knock. Jason turned to see a man in a charcoal coat standing calmly on the porch. Jason Miller. Jason opened the door, his voice cracking. "Who are you?" The man lifted a business card. "Daniel Carter, attorney at law. I represent your wife, Olivia Parker. I have documents to serve you." Jason froze. "Documents? What documents?" Daniel extended the leather folder. "A petition for divorce, a temporary restraining order, and a court motion requesting protection of marital assets." "You are officially notified as of this moment." Jason stumbled back. No, this is insane. "We spoke this morning." Daniel remained calm. "Your wife is 7 months pregnant. She has every legal right to separate herself and the baby from behavior she considers unsafe." Jason's face drained of color. "Where is she?" "Tell me where she is." Daniel shook his head. "You are not allowed contact outside legal counsel." Jason lunged for his phone, scrolling frantically to my number. Every call went straight to voicemail. He tried friends. He tried Maya. Nothing. Even the home security camera's password changed. He slammed the phone down on the counter, breathing hard. "You don't understand. She can't do this. She can't just vanish." Daniel's eyes softened just slightly. "She didn't vanish, Mr. Miller. She walked away." Jason gripped the kitchen island, sweat beading on his forehead. Then Daniel laid one last envelope on the counter. "Your wife also submitted proof. Financial records, text messages, photos. I advise you not to destroy or move anything in the house. The court has already been notified." Jason's throat tightened. What records?" Daniel snapped his briefcase shut. "Records showing where you've been, Mr. Miller, and who you've been with, for the first time." Jason whispered a name. "Sloan?" Daniel paused as he turned to leave. "There's one more thing your wife asked me to tell you. The baby is safe." The door closed. Jason was alone in the kitchen. The stainless steel refrigerator hummed beside him. City lights flickered through the blinds. The silence pressed against him like a weight. Then he noticed something else. My wedding ring, placed carefully on the marble countertop next to his untouched Father's Day gift. That was when he understood. It wasn't a fight. It was over. Jason didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of the empty nursery floor until morning, staring at the faded outline of where the crib had been. Sunlight slashed through the blinds like thin silver blades, breaking the room into fragments. His eyes were swollen, but the house remained silent, as though it belonged to someone else. At 9:13 a.m., he tried my number again, straight to voicemail. He paced the living room, stepping over the patch of carpet where the baby's playmat once lay. His thoughts spun in circles. She couldn't have known. She couldn't have found out. I covered everything. Yet he remembered the perfume, sweet, expensive, lingering on a Fifth Avenue shopping bag he'd brought home 3 weeks ago. He remembered how I quietly folded the baby's onesies that night, saying nothing. He missed all the warnings because he never imagined I would leave. By noon, Jason had dragged himself into the kitchen, where my wedding ring still rested on the marble countertop. Next to it was something new, a USB drive in a small clear bag labeled Evidence. Daniel must have left it there. Jason stared at it for a moment before plugging it into his laptop. The files opened instantly, screenshots of text messages, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and, most unnerving, a folder labeled Videos. His chest tightened. He clicked the first one. There he was, 3 weeks earlier, laughing at a restaurant with Sloane. The angle was discreet, likely captured by a private investigator. Jason rubbed his temples as the video zoomed in on his hand resting on Sloane's thigh. "How did she get all this?" he whispered. A second video followed, him and Sloane in an apartment hallway exchanging a kiss before slipping inside. He slammed the laptop shut, but the images had already burrowed into his chest. He flung his phone onto the couch and stormed into the bathroom, splashing cold water onto his face. The reflection staring back at him seemed unfamiliar. Rumpled shirt, crooked tie, guilt etched into every line of his forehead. For the first time, fear replaced denial. He grabbed his keys and stepped outside, scanning the street as if I might magically appear. Nothing, just a passing UPS truck and a neighbor walking her dog. Jason got into his car and drove, Brooklyn blurring past him. Brownstones, corner cafes, the deli where he used to buy me chocolate milk to ease my nausea. Everything felt like the ghost of a life he had lost. His first stop was Maya's apartment. When she opened the door, she didn't flinch. "You need to leave," she said coldly. "I just want to make sure Olivia's okay," he pleaded. "You lost that, right?" Her voice trembled, not with anger but heartbreak. "She trusted you. She believed you'd be a good father. She believed she was safe with you," Jason choked. "Where is she staying? Is the baby okay?" Maya crossed her arms. "The baby is fine. She's seeing a doctor. She has people protecting her." He stepped forward. "I just need to talk to her." Maya didn't move. "Jason, you cheated on a woman carrying your child. You lied to her over and over. You don't get to knock on a door and pretend this is a misunderstanding." The hallway light buzzed softly. Jason lowered his eyes. "Quiet now. She prayed you wouldn't betray her. She used to sit at my kitchen counter reading parenting books while drinking decaf, talking about names, tiny socks, taking pictures at Central Park with the stroller." Jason's breath caught. Maya looked at him one last time. "If you care about her at all, follow the rules. Let the lawyers speak. Don't make this worse." She closed the door. Jason stood in the hallway, numb. A neighbor passed, glancing at him with curiosity. He swallowed hard and made his way back to the elevator, hands shaking. By the time he reached the lobby, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Mr. Miller, this is Daniel Carter. Your attempts to contact Mrs. Parker's friends have been noted. Restrict your actions to legal channels." Jason stared at the screen. The walls felt smaller, the world tighter. For the first time, he truly sensed what losing everything might feel like. Meanwhile, somewhere else in Manhattan, I sat in a quiet studio apartment, hand resting on my belly as the baby kicked gently. A reminder that leaving wasn't just self-preservation. It was survival. 3 days after I left, the autumn wind in Manhattan felt sharper than usual. I sat by the window of the small studio Maya had helped me rent. Nothing glamorous, but quiet, safe, and mine. The walls were soft cream, the furniture minimal, and the crib, assembled by Maya, stood near the bed, a tiny mobile of silver stars twirling above. For the first time in months, I slept without worrying the front door would open at midnight. Each morning I woke with my hand on my belly, whispering, "We're okay." We're really okay. That afternoon, Daniel visited. He took off his coat, setting his briefcase on the coffee table beside a stack of baby books. His presence was steady, grounding, as if someone always knew how to steer the storm. "You look better today," he said gently. "I slept," I replied. "That hasn't happened in a while." He nodded and handed me a set of documents, financial statements, timelines of Jason's transactions, and printed screenshots of messages between him and Sloane. Seeing the betrayal laid out on paper made it feel heavier, not lighter. "We're moving forward with the separation order," Daniel explained. "I've requested temporary control of marital assets until after the birth. The judge is reviewing the evidence and your medical status." I exhaled slowly. My heartbeat sounded too loud in my ears. "Will he fight it?" Daniel gave a small, almost sad smile. "Jason is already trying, but the documentation is strong, and courts tend to protect pregnant spouses, especially with proof of emotional distress." My throat tightened. I used to think he'd be a good father. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. When he left, Maya appeared with groceries. Fresh fruit, prenatal vitamins, 2 pints of vanilla ice cream, and a small stuffed elephant she pretended wasn't for emotional reasons. I sat on the couch as she arranged everything. "You know," she said softly, "I never wanted to be right. When I told you he felt off, I hoped I was just being paranoid." "I hoped you were wrong, too," I admitted, my voice cracking. Maya sat beside me and took my hand. "But you did something most women don't have the strength to do. You left before he destroyed you." I looked down at the floor. "Sometimes I worried I'd overreacted." She squeezed my fingers. "You're 7 months pregnant, Liv. You should be cared for, not lied to. Betrayal isn't a mistake. It's a choice." My stomach tightened. Not from fear, but from a soft kick inside. I smiled through tears. "He's moving again." Maya placed her hand on my belly. "Hi, little guy. Your mama is a warrior." That night, after Maya went home, I opened the studio curtains. The Manhattan skyline glowed like a constellation of glass and steel. Somewhere in that city, Jason was pacing, dialing, scrambling for control. The thought no longer hurt the way it used to. It still stung, but the wound was no longer bleeding. The next morning, I had a doctor's appointment. Maya insisted on coming, even though I told her I could manage. She hailed a taxi, helped me into the back seat, and adjusted the seatbelt across my stomach. The driver didn't speak much, but he smiled when he saw the baby bump. At the clinic, the nurse took my vitals and guided me into a small ultrasound room. The lights dimmed, the screen flickered. There he was, heart beating strong, kicking gently, safe. The doctor smiled. "He looks healthy. No signs of stress. You're doing everything right." Tears ran silently down my cheeks, not from sadness, but relief. Maya pressed a tissue into my hand. "See, he's thriving. And so are you." On the way back, we stopped at a small bookstore. I bought a navy blue journal with gold-edged pages, so I could write letters to my son, not about Jason, not about betrayal, but about strength, choosing peace. And the day I finally walked away. That night, wrapped in a soft blanket, I wrote my first entry. "You deserved a home filled with love, not broken promises. So I built you a new one." For the first time, the loneliness didn't scare me. Freedom didn't feel empty. It felt like oxygen. While I built a quiet routine in my Manhattan studio, prenatal vitamins, short walks, journaling, Jason's world began to crumble. On the 4th morning after I left, his phone buzzed with a message from his supervisor. "We need to talk. HR and compliance are holding a meeting today at 4 p.m. He stared at the screen, pulse racing, hands shaking as he typed a weak reply, pretending he didn't already know what this was about. He remembered the money he transferred to Sloan, hidden under consulting, and the way he signed reimbursement forms without a second thought. He had once believed he was untouchable. Now, even the office felt like enemy territory. Jason arrived early, wearing the same navy suit from the night I left. The receptionist avoided eye contact. As he stepped off the elevator, coworkers fell silent, not with sympathy, but the awkward tension of someone whose life is unraveling in public. Inside the glass-walled conference room, his manager sat across from him with 2 HR representatives. A laptop was open, a stack of papers beside it. "We received information regarding inappropriate use of company funds," his manager began. "Expenses tied to a non-employee private companion." Jason's throat went dry. "I can explain." "We'll let you speak," an HR representative interrupted. But understand, we've already launched an internal audit. His heart pounded. He pictured Sloane's face, the fancy dinners, the station. He thought deleting a few receipts could erase the truth. He never imagined I would gather proof, or that I'd be brave enough to leave. By the time the meeting ended, Jason walked out with his company ID deactivated and his laptop surrendered, suspended until further notice. Investigation pending. His boss didn't shake his hand. When the elevator doors closed, Jason leaned against the wall, breath uneven. For a man who prized status over honesty, humiliation felt lethal. Meanwhile, across the city, I lay on the couch, one hand resting on the blanket over my belly. Daniel stopped by that evening after work and placed an envelope on the coffee table. Your husband's company has started an internal inquiry. It's moving faster than I expected. I didn't smile. Betrayal from the father of my unborn child wasn't a reason to celebrate, but accountability mattered. Will it affect the divorce? I asked. It helps your case, Daniel replied calmly, especially regarding financial responsibility and custody arrangements. I nodded, a strange mix of relief and grief washing over me. He used to say he wanted to teach our son about integrity. Daniel exhaled softly. Some lessons come from what not to be. He packed his things and left. I watched him cross the street from the window, his black coat lifted by the wind. For a moment he looked like a quiet guardian, someone who didn't need thanks to keep protecting us. That night I cooked for the first time since leaving. Simple pasta, steamed broccoli. Maya FaceTimed me, holding her cat up to the camera as a morale check for the baby. I laughed, truly laughed for the first time in weeks. After dinner, I opened my journal. Your father broke our home, I wrote. But he didn't break me, and he will never break you. Across the city, Jason drank whiskey straight from the bottle, sitting on the bottom of our empty living room floor. The house echoed. Walls felt too large. Every room looked like a crime scene of his own making. He picked up his phone and typed, Olivia, please just talk to me. He hit send. Moments later, an automated reply flashed. Your message could not be delivered due to restricted contact. The screen blurred with tears or rage. It didn't matter. He was alone, with nothing but silence and the consequences he had created. I slept peacefully. The studio apartment had become my sanctuary. Quiet mornings, prenatal vitamins lined up on the counter, tiny baby clothes folded neatly in a drawer. Every night I wrote another page to my son, promising him a life untouched by lies. But peace is fragile. And pregnancy reminds a woman that the body remembers every bruise the heart has taken. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. I woke before dawn, a tight pain circling my lower belly. At first, I thought it was just the baby shifting, but the pain sharpened, coming in waves. My breath caught. I sat up slowly, clutching the edge of the bed. Not now. Please, not now. I placed both hands over my stomach. The baby moved with small, reassuring kicks, but the cramping didn't stop. Anxiety sank its teeth into my chest. The stress, the lack of sleep, the emotional weight of everything I'd been holding. I grabbed my phone and called Maya. She answered immediately, her voice half asleep. Liv, what's wrong? I don't feel good. Stomach pain. I don't know if it's normal. I'm coming right now. Don't move. 20 minutes later, she burst into the apartment, messy hair, sweatshirt zipped halfway, and that fierce determination only true friends carry. She helped me into her Toyota, buckled my seatbelt carefully, and kept her hand on my arm the entire drive. Rain pounded against the windshield. You're going to be okay, she whispered. The baby's okay. We're just making sure. At the hospital, the nurse rushed me into an exam room. Sensors were strapped across my belly, and the monitor beeped steadily. I stared at the ceiling, trying not to cry. The doctor entered, calm, professional, gentle. He smiled reassuringly. You're experiencing uterine irritability, not active labor. It can happen around week 30, especially under emotional strain. Maya exhaled so loudly the doctor chuckled softly. Your baby's heartbeat is strong, he continued. But you need rest, less stress, more fluids, and avoid standing or walking for long periods. A single tear rolled down my cheek. Relief is a quiet kind of miracle. The doctor handed me a printout from the ultrasound. My son's profile, tiny nose, little hand curled near his cheek. Maya covered her mouth, eyes glistening. "He looks perfect," she whispered. Back at the studio, Maya helped me settle on the couch, propping pillows behind my back. She brewed chamomile tea and tucked a soft blanket around my legs. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she said gently. "You're allowed to break a little." I nodded, eyes glistening. I had walked away to keep him safe, but sometimes the loneliness still pressed in. "You're not alone," Maya said firmly. "You have me, you have Daniel, you have your mom, and you have a son who already knows his mother is a fighter." Later that evening, while Maya slept in a chair beside me, I checked my email. A new message from Daniel. Jason attempted to request visitation through unofficial channels. The judge did not approve. "He's been warned. Focus on your health. I'll handle everything." Instead of fear, gratitude filled me. Across town, Jason sat in a dimly lit bar, a half-empty glass of whiskey in front of him. His reflection in the mirror behind the counter looked older, defeated. He tried calling Sloane. No answer. He tried texting coworkers. Silence. For the first time in his adult life, nobody came to rescue him. Back in my studio, I turned off the light and placed the ultrasound photo on the nightstand. I ran my fingers over the tiny printed face. "Just a few more weeks," I whispered. "We'll make it." The baby kicked slow and steady, like a promise, and I finally fell asleep, not with fear, but with hope. For a full week after the hospital scare, I barely left the apartment. Curtains stayed open during the day so sunlight could warm the room. I slept propped up on pillows just as the doctor advised. Maya visited every morning before work, squeezing my hand, checking the fridge, and scolding me for trying to do too much. On Thursday afternoon, Daniel arrived with a different kind of news. Paperwork carrying more weight than any medicine. He set his briefcase on the kitchen counter and pulled out a stack of printed statements, each stamped with the company's letterhead. "It's official," he said quietly. "Jason's employer suspended him pending investigation. They've informed the court they found questionable transfers and fabricated expense documents. That strengthens your financial protection." My heart thudded slowly. "So he can't touch the joint accounts?" I asked. "Not without court approval," Daniel confirmed. "And the judge granted you temporary sole access for medical and living expenses, including prenatal care." Relief washed over me. Warm, dizzying, almost overwhelming. For the first time, I didn't feel trapped under Jason's shadow. The baby in my stomach stirred as if sensing the change too. Daniel wasn't finished. He pulled out a smaller envelope, cream paper sealed with a gold clip. "This is from your mother." I blinked. My mother? We hadn't spoken in months. Old wounds, old arguments, old disappointments. My hands shook as I opened it. "Olivia, I knew something was wrong. Nobody disappears from their home willingly without a reason. I'm coming to New York. I'm staying for the baby and for you." My breath caught. Maya leaned over my shoulder, eyes wide. "Your mom is coming here?" I nodded slowly. She'd never done that before. Daniel cleared his throat gently. "There's more. She's bringing documentation your grandparents left behind. Keep it safe. It might be important." When he left, Maya helped me to the couch, but I barely felt the cushions beneath me. I hadn't been close to my mother since my father's funeral. We loved each other, but we were made of different storms. Too proud, too stubborn, too hurt. Yet she was coming, for me, and for her grandson. Across the city, Jason's unraveling accelerated. He returned to our Brooklyn brownstone one afternoon to find a notice taped to the door. Court-ordered financial audit in progress. He ripped. It down, stormed inside, and pulled open drawers, searching for anything proving he still had control. Bank cards, documents, jewelry boxes. In the bedroom, he found a velvet pouch tucked behind my old sweaters. Inside was the charm bracelet he once gave me for our anniversary, each charm marking a year of marriage. He had forgotten it existed, but I hadn't. Jason sank onto the bed, clutching it, and for a brief moment, he wasn't the arrogant man who believed the world bent to his ego. He looked small, fragile, terrified. He dialed Sloan again, straight to voicemail. He tried texting friends, no replies. He called his mother. The conversation was short, cold, disappointed. He was running out of places to hide. Meanwhile, I prepared for the arrival of the woman who had raised me. Maya helped tidy the apartment and even bought a small vase of white lilies for the kitchen table. That evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it and stared into the eyes of the woman who had taught me how to braid my hair, cook tomato soup, and stand up straight even when the world tried to push me down. My mother stepped inside, eyes glossy with emotions she didn't know how to express. "You look tired," she whispered. "You look worried," I replied. And then, without rehearsed apology or explanation, we hugged. Long, tight, messy. Her hands trembled on my back. "I should have come sooner," she said. "You're here now," I whispered. She cupped my face and kissed my forehead. "My grandson needs peace, and so do you." We sat together on the couch while Maya made tea. My mother told stories of my grandparents, kind, stubborn people who believed families should fight for one another, not against. She slid a folder across the table. "These are trust documents," she explained. "Your grandfather set them up years ago. You were too young to understand then." Inside the folder were signatures, bank information, and a clause highlighted, in yellow. In case of emotional or physical endangerment to the beneficiary or her unborn child, full protection of trust assets will activate. Tears blurred my vision. "That means," I whispered. "It means Jason can't touch a single dollar that belongs to you," she said. "And he never will." For the first time, safety didn't feel distant. It felt real. I rested my head on her shoulder. She smoothed my hair like she used to when I was a child, and the world finally stopped spinning. Across the city, Jason sat alone under the dim kitchen light, staring at the empty crib space, understanding too late that the baby he once imagined was no longer his to influence or hurt. A week later, crisp October air blew through Manhattan, sharp enough to sting the lungs. My mother stayed in the studio with me, moving slowly, always watching as if one wrong breath might crack me. Some nights she read children's stories aloud, her soft voice trembling at the edges, like she was practicing for her grandson's arrival. Then the phone rang. Daniel's voice was controlled, but firm. "The judge scheduled a hearing for temporary custody and financial protections tomorrow morning. You don't have to speak much. I'll handle the majority, but your presence matters." My mother squeezed my hand. "We'll be there." That night I barely slept. The baby kicked steadily as if reminding me he needed peace, comfort, stability. I placed both hands over my belly and whispered, "We're doing this for us." Morning light spilled over the Manhattan skyline. Daniel picked us up in a silver sedan, helping me into the back seat like I was made of glass. My mother held my shoulder the entire ride. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and old paper, clean, formal, cold. In the hallway outside the courtroom, lawyers in suits moved with stiff precision. I felt small among them, but Daniel stood tall, his presence solid as stone. Jason was already there. He sat alone on a bench, hair unkempt, suit wrinkled, dark circles beneath his eyes. When he saw me, he stood. For a moment his mouth opened, as if he might apologize or beg or cry. But the bailiff called the room to order, and the moment vanished. Inside, we sat at separate tables. Daniel arranged files neatly before him. Jason had no lawyer, only a trembling hand clutching a stack of disorganized papers. The judge, a calm woman with steel gray hair, looked over the documents. "Mrs. Parker," she said gently, "your attorney has presented evidence of emotional distress during pregnancy, financial misconduct by your spouse, and a request for temporary sole custody until the child is born. Is this accurate?" I nodded, voice steady. "Yes, Your Honor." Jason's voice cracked. "I never hurt her. I made mistakes, but I never hurt her." Daniel didn't raise his tone. "Infidelity and financial deception during a high-risk pregnancy constitute emotional harm under state law." Jason slammed his hands on the table. "She left without a word. She took everything." My mother inhaled sharply, but the judge lifted a hand. "Mr. Miller, you will speak when permitted." Jason collapsed back into his chair, defeated. Daniel continued, "We have documented proof of unauthorized transfers, non-business expenses charged to the company, and attempts to contact the petitioner through restricted channels. Additionally, Mrs. Parker's medical records indicate stress-related uterine complications." Everything fell silent. The judge reviewed each page, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her voice was crisp and unwavering. "Effective immediately, Olivia Parker is granted temporary sole custody until delivery and medical clearance post-birth. Mr. Miller will have no direct contact until the restraining order is reevaluated. All joint assets remain frozen under court supervision. Mrs. Parker receives exclusive access for medical expenses and living needs." Jason swallowed hard. The judge wasn't finished. "Given the financial irregularities, I am recommending review by the district attorney's office. Mr. Miller, you are ordered to provide full access to bank records and communication logs within 72 hours. Jason tried to speak, but no sound came out. The gavel struck. Court adjourned. Outside the courtroom, Jason followed us into the hallway, desperate. "Olivia, just let me see you. Let me explain." Daniel stepped between us, calm but firm. "Sir, this is a violation of the order. Step back." My mother's voice was cold steel. "My daughter owes you nothing." Jason's eyes flooded. "I lost my job. I lost everything. Please, just talk to me." I looked at him. Really looked. This wasn't the confident man who once promised to protect us. This was a stranger drowning in the consequences he created. "I needed you when it mattered," I whispered. "When I was carrying our child. When I cried alone because I knew something was wrong. And you chose someone else?" He pressed his hand to his face, shaking. Daniel guided me away. My mother walked on my other side, her arm linked through mine. We left Jason in that hallway, small, broken, and silent. Outside the courthouse, the air felt lighter. The city moved around us. Taxis honking, pigeons scattering, the world continuing as if nothing monumental had happened. But something had changed. The law had spoken. And for the first time, I wasn't running. I was protected. After the court ruling, a new kind of quiet settled inside me. It wasn't the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of boundaries. Legal, emotional, and final. But for Jason, the walls kept closing in. 2 days after the hearing, I received a brief email from Daniel. His company has referred the financial misconduct to the district attorney's office. There may be criminal charges. I stared at the screen, fingers trembling. Not with joy, not with spite, but with the heavy, complicated truth that the father of my child was sinking deeper into the hole he had dug himself. That same afternoon, rain washed over Brooklyn. Jason stood outside the brownstone as investigators removed boxes of documents. He tried speaking to them, asking questions, demanding explanations, but every answer was the same. "Sir, we can't speak with you. Contact your attorney," but he didn't have one. No lawyer wanted a client already buried under evidence. Inside the nearly empty house, he paced the living room, the same room where he once placed his hand on my stomach and promised he would love our son more than anything. Now the echo of his footsteps mocked him. His phone lit up. Message from Sloan. "We need to talk." Part of him felt relief. Maybe she would stay. Maybe someone still cared. He drove across town to her apartment building, an upscale high-rise with marble floors and chrome railings in the lobby. He remembered when he used to feel proud walking through those doors. He buzzed her unit. No answer, texted, no reply. A doorman eyed him wearily. Finally, Sloane stepped out of the elevator. Her expression was cold, rehearsed. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Jason blinked. I needed someone to talk to." "You need a lawyer, not me," she said. She stepped back as he reached for her hand. "I didn't sign up for this level of disaster. Your wife has evidence. The court is involved. The company is watching. This is toxic. My wife?" Jason laughed bitterly. "You hated her." "I didn't hate her," Sloane snapped. "But I didn't expect her to be smarter than you." That sentence hit him harder than any judge's ruling. Then she delivered the final blow. "I'm done, Jason. Good luck." She walked away without looking back. Across Manhattan, I sat at the kitchen table while my mother chopped vegetables for dinner. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the room. Warm, safe, familiar. I leaned back in my chair as the baby shifted inside me. "You look tired," she said softly. "I'm 7 months pregnant," I smiled. "Tired is the default setting." She laughed, then grew serious. "You don't have to be strong every minute." "I'm not," I admitted. "Some nights I miss the man I thought he was, not the one he became." My mother set the knife down and touched my hand. "You didn't fall in love with a monster. You fell in love with a man who made monstrous choices." The doorbell rang before I could respond. It was a delivery driver holding a cardboard Amazon box addressed to me. Inside were baby blankets, soft and cream-colored, wrapped in tissue. My mother smiled, folding them neatly, imagining a future that felt more real every day. Later that evening, as I sat on the couch writing in my journal, I heard a quiet sob. I turned and saw my mother wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "When your father died, I shut down." I pulled away. "I should have been here sooner." I reached for her hand. "You're here now, and we need you." We cried together, 2 women healing old wounds while waiting for a new life. In Brooklyn, Jason wandered the empty nursery. He sat on the floor where the crib once stood, staring at the wall as if it might offer forgiveness. He whispered to no one, "I ruined everything." His phone buzzed again. An email from his company. "Employment terminated. Final notice attached." Below it, another message. "Financial records submitted to the district attorney's office." Jason slid down the wall, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. He wanted to blame me. He wanted to blame Sloane. He wanted to blame the world. But deep down, for the first time, he saw the truth. He had destroyed his family with his own hands, and no one was coming to save him. By the time I reached week 34, the studio felt less like a hiding place and more like a beginning. Baby clothes hung neatly in tiny rows. My hospital bag sat by the door, packed with soft blankets, pacifiers, and a navy onesie that read, "Hello, world," in white letters. But the world outside was still shifting. One morning, as my mother poured coffee into a ceramic mug, Daniel called. His voice was steady, but I recognized the gravity. Beneath it, "The district attorney has accepted the corporate referral." I held the phone tighter. "Jason will be charged with falsifying financial records and misappropriating funds." "Does that mean jail?" "Possibly," Daniel replied. "But there will be a hearing first." "You won't need to attend? I'll represent you." When the call ended, I rested my hands on my stomach and let the reality sink in. I hadn't wanted revenge. I only wanted safety. But the law doesn't care about heartbreak. It cares about evidence. My mother sat beside me. "You're thinking about your son," she said gently. "I don't want him growing up hearing that his father went to jail because of me." She shook her head. "Jason put himself there. Your son deserves the truth, not a story polished to protect a man who never protected him." Her words were soft, but they carried steel. Across Brooklyn, Jason sat in a courtroom smaller and colder than ours had been. A public defender sat beside him, someone who barely knew his name. His hands were cuffed in front, not tightly, just enough to remind him he no longer owned his freedom. The prosecutor read the accusations: unauthorized company funds, fabricated receipts, false expense claims. Jason kept his head down. When asked how he pleaded, his voice barely surfaced. Not guilty. The judge set conditions: court-mandated restitution, travel restrictions, weekly check-ins. Jason was escorted out as quietly as he had entered. No reporters, no family, no Sloan, only silence. That afternoon, he walked home under gray skies, the kind that pressed on the chest like weight. Leaves scraped across the sidewalk. The brownstone looked older, emptier, as if even the bricks were tired of him. Inside, he checked his voicemail again. Nothing. No friends. No coworkers. No Sloan. He opened the closet and saw an old cardboard box labeled baby stuff, decorations from the gender reveal we had planned months ago. He pulled out a tiny blue bow tie and held it in trembling fingers. For a moment, he imagined a different life. Me smiling at the camera, his hand on my belly, a future that actually existed. His vision blurred. He sank to the floor and cried, not the angry, broken sobs he used to bury with whiskey, but the kind of crying that comes when a man finally understands what he destroyed. Back in Manhattan, Daniel stopped by the studio that evening with an update. The court approved full financial protection for you and the baby, and there's something else. He handed me a sealed envelope from the hospital. My new prenatal records, showing improved vitals and reduced stress indicators. You're stabilizing, Daniel said. Your baby is doing well. My mother wiped her eyes. Thank God, I pressed the papers to my chest. He's strong. Stronger than me, maybe. Daniel looked at me carefully. You did everything right, Olivia. You protected your child. The judge sees it. The law sees it. For the first time, I believed it. After you left, I sat by the window watching the city glow. My mother knitted a tiny hat in pale blue yarn, humming softly. I whispered to my son, I don't know what kind of father he'll be. Maybe none at all. But you will never question how much you were wanted. My mother brushed my hair back. Your son will grow up knowing love. That's enough. And for the first time since I discovered Jason's betrayal, I felt peace deeper than silence. A peace that didn't depend on him failing, but on me rising. In Brooklyn, Jason opened the windows to the nursery that was no longer a nursery. Cold wind swept in, scattering dust. He stared at the empty floor, imagining a crib he would never build, bedtime stories he would never read, lullabies no one would hear. He whispered into the empty room, I'm sorry. But the room didn't answer, and apologies don't rebuild trust that no longer exists. By week 36, the winter wind had begun brushing against Manhattan. The studio apartment smelled of laundry detergent, warm soup, and the faint sweetness of baby lotion my mother insisted on buying just to be ready. Every night I sat in the armchair by the window, rocking gently, feeling little feet push against my ribs. Then, just before dawn on a quiet Sunday, my water broke. There was no panic, just a sharp inhale and a whisper. It's time. My mother bundled me into a coat, called Daniel to let him know we were heading to the hospital, and helped me down the stairs to a waiting taxi. The city was still asleep, streetlights glowing over empty sidewalks, steam rising from manhole covers. It felt like the world had paused just for us. At the hospital, nurses rushed me into a delivery room. Monitors beeped in steady rhythm, like a drum guiding us toward the moment everything would change. Contractions tightened, stronger, closer. A nurse wiped my forehead with a cool cloth. You're doing beautifully, she whispered. Hours passed in waves of pain, breathing, and whispered prayers. My mother stood beside me, fingers laced through mine. Every time I thought I might break, she whispered, You are stronger than this moment. And she was right. By early afternoon, I heard the smallest cry, a a thin, trembling sound that instantly became the most beautiful noise I had ever heard. They placed him on my chest, warm and impossibly tiny. His skin pressed against mine, fingers curled around the fabric of my hospital gown. My son, my miracle, my reason for surviving every broken promise. Tears blurred my vision. My mother sobbed openly, stroking his dark hair. "He's perfect," she breathed. Later, as nurses checked his vitals and swaddled him in a soft striped blanket, I watched quietly. He blinked up at me with sleepy eyes, unaware of the storm he had been conceived inside, unaware that the world had changed the moment he arrived. Across Brooklyn, Jason answered a knock at the door. An unformed officer stood at the entrance holding a sealed envelope. "Mr. Miller, this confirms the activation of the restraining order post-birth. You are not permitted contact with Mrs. Parker or the child until further ruling. You'll receive details regarding mandatory financial restitution and community service requirements." Jason didn't argue. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded. He closed the door, leaned his head against the wall, and let the silence swallow him. For the first time, he understood that consequences weren't abstract. They were a lifetime. He sat on the nursery floor holding the blue bow tie he once bought in a moment of hope. It no longer symbolized joy. It was simply a reminder of everything he threw away. In the hospital room, I held my son asleep against my chest. The evening sun poured through the window, bathing him in golden light. My mother rested in a chair, exhausted but peaceful. Daniel knocked gently and stepped inside, holding a small teddy bear wrapped in tissue. "I didn't know what newborns like," he said shyly. I smiled. "Anything soft." He stood near the crib, watching the baby breathe. "The judge approved full custody, Olivia. Financial restitution has been ordered. And with the corporate charges proceeding, Jason will be monitored for a long time." I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt protected. "Thank you," I whispered. "You protected yourself," he replied. I just held the paperwork. Before he left, he turned back. "If you ever need anything, legal or not, you call. When—" The room fell quiet again. I looked down at the tiny face sleeping on my chest. "You will never inherit his pain," I whispered. "Only his name, if you choose." My son stirred, sighing a soft, newborn sigh, and the world softened around us. That night, while Manhattan lights glittered outside the window, I wrote one last entry in my journal. "You were born into strength, not sorrow. You will grow in love, not fear. What your father broke, I rebuilt. And you, my son, are the proof that endings can still give life to beautiful beginnings." I closed the journal and kissed the top of his head. In that moment, the past no longer controlled me. The future no longer scared me, and the life I once dreamed of, quiet, safe, filled with love, was finally ours. 6 months later, spring had returned to Manhattan. Trees in Central Park stood dressed in fresh green, cherry blossoms scattered, soft petals across the pavement, and the air carried that sweet mix of sunshine and possibility. My son, now chubby-cheeked and curly-haired, always curious, watched the world from his stroller as if every leaf and cloud belonged to him. We lived in a small but beautiful one-bedroom apartment overlooking the river. Not luxurious, not extravagant, just peaceful, just ours. Every morning after his bottle, I placed him in the stroller and walked along the waterfront. Cyclists passed, couples jogged, dogs tugged at their leashes. My mother often joined us, pushing him when my arms got tired. Sometimes she cried quietly, happy tears, because she never thought she'd get a second chance to love without fear. I worked from home now, running a small event planning business. Clients reached out by email, deposits came through a secure app, and the apartment slowly filled with colorful stationery samples, ribbons, and mock-up designs. I wasn't rich, but I was free. Every invoice I sent felt like reclaiming part of myself. Daniel visited once a month to check in, not just as my attorney, but as a friend. On this sunny afternoon, he arrived holding a Starbucks cup in one hand and a tiny book in the other. "I hear someone likes bedtime stories," he said, handing the book to my son. "It's about shapes," I laughed. "He only likes the circle page," I added. Daniel smiled. "Circles are proof that endings become beginnings." Very philosophical for a baby. My mother rolled her eyes. "You two sound like a greeting card." We sat on a park bench, watching my son grab his own toes and squeal with delight at a floating bubble. Then Daniel grew serious. "There's something I need to tell you." Jason completed his financial restitution and started his court-ordered community service. He asked the judge to allow a written apology to be delivered to you. I didn't flinch. "And what did the judge say?" I asked. "She approved it. Only a letter, no contact." I nodded. "I want to read it, but I don't want it to change anything." "It won't," Daniel replied. "Closure is a gift you give yourself, not something someone else hands you." That evening, after putting my son down for a nap, I opened the envelope. The letter was short, just one page. He apologized for lying, for cheating, for failing, for shattering a family he claimed to cherish. He wrote that he was trying to be better, not to win me back, not to erase what happened, just to keep our son from inheriting his mistakes. I read it once, then again. Surprisingly, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance, the kind that means the wound has already scarred over. I folded the letter and placed it in a small box labeled private, for when he's older. Not to protect Jason, but because someday my son might ask, and I want honesty ready. The next weekend, Daniel joined us for a small celebration, my first signed contract with a new client. We sat in the kitchen, my son chewing on a teething toy shaped like a lion, my mother pouring iced tea into glasses. "You rebuilt everything from zero," Daniel said quietly. "No," I corrected. "I rebuilt from broken." He looked at me for a moment longer than a friend might, and for the first time, I didn't feel afraid of what that meant. Later, as the sun dipped beyond the skyline, I pushed the stroller through Central Park. My son laughed at the ducks floating in the pond, kicking his feet happily. Warm air curled around us, carrying the smell of grass and distant food carts. I knelt beside him and kissed his forehead. "You'll grow up surrounded by love," I whispered. "Not excuses, not betrayal." He wrapped his tiny fingers around mine, and that was all the proof I needed. That healing is real, that life can begin again, that a mother's courage doesn't end the night she walks away. It begins the night she chooses a better future for herself and for the child who deserves a world built from truth.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.